GM, welcome to Altcoin Analysis. This is where I analyze all of the altcoins that you guys requested to me in yesterday's video, and I do this every single Saturday. So without further ado, let's start off by looking at the total 3 chart. So this is everything excluding Bitcoin, ETH, and stablecoins. So it shows your general health of the altcoin market. And as mentioned in last week's video, you have these periods where smart money accumulate, price goes sideways, which bores out your everyday retail trader because this isn't fun, price isn't mooning, so they check out of the markets, lose interest. And that, of course, leads to the markup where your retail traders, your dumb money, they gain interest. So smart money who bought here, sell when retail return due to the excitement over here. And it's the hard times which lead to the easy times. This is your easy mode rally on altcoins. And that was during Q1 2024. So you had your crypto AI coins running, FET, Render at that time going absolutely crazy. You had things like Pepe going crazy. And then, of course, that leads to your next smart money reaccumulation. Again, you get that low volatility. Everyone is checked out of the markets. They're not interested because price isn't moving. While smart money, they buy, they accumulate the cheap coins, and then boom, leads to the markup. You get your easy mode again. Retail, dumb money return. Trump gets inaugurated as president. You see meme coin mania. And of course, smart money bought here. Start selling on the dumb money that start buying here. They use it as exit liquidity, as they should, because they stayed around in the hard times. So you need to realize some profits in the easy times. Now, what have we seen? Well, we went back into the hard times where smart money accumulated throughout this box. As you see, where does price find support? Oh, of course, where smart money previously accumulated, because smart money are not going to sell when price is back at their entry. This is when they stop dumping on retail. That's why the wick comes straight into this box. Think that's magic? Of course it's not. Again, smart money accumulated here. Where did price find support? Wicked right back to where their entries were, because again, they're not incentivized to sell once price comes back to their entry. That's what leads to the next reaccumulation. As I mentioned last week, you just want to see price not close within this box again. Wicks are fine, sure, but from here, price should have the energy to go into easy mode. When we go to the daily chart, what have we seen on the altcoin index? Well, in one of the morning market videos, I mentioned that we need to flip this level here where price tried to break out of, failed, set a trap over here. So this consolidation was a distribution trap for bulls who were breakout buying, expecting a banana zone up from Raoul Pal. And then, of course, Raoul Pal dumps. I'm joking. Of course, price goes down. Hope some of you guys get that reference. But price goes down and forms a higher low over here, which is exactly what you want to see. Didn't produce a new low. So there is strength once those breakout buyers start getting wrecked. And as we get back above the breakout point, that's now invalidating this false breakout. So the invalidation of a bearish setup is, of course, a bullish setup. So very nice on altcoins, seeing them reclaim the breakout points which they previously rejected from. This should now lead to a markup higher on your altcoins. And one thing to mention that I did get an alert fire off for, let's quickly look at the Russell 2000. So this is your low cap stocks. It's very interesting, this chart, because as you can see, 2021 marked the cycle top, 2024 marked the meme coin mania top. These are like your altcoins in the stock market. So it shows the risk appetite of traders and investors to a much larger scale, because the stock market's much bigger than the altcoin market. So if this can actually break out, follow something like the green path and mark up, then risk appetite's rising. And you know what that means, guys? That means we're potentially heading into a period where you actually see your altcoins outperform and get favored over your majors, which is something we haven't seen. Of course, that's a late stage cycle signal when your majors start underperforming, having outperformed the whole cycle. But That's why I say green path, risk appetite is increasing, red path, risk appetite is decreasing. So things are shaping up pretty nicely, especially if we can close the weekly above this level. We're holding those weekly 12 and 21 bands on the altcoin index, and it's gearing up with higher lows, higher lows, higher lows to what should be a markup from here. Now, you just don't want to see it lose this breakout level again. That is your now key level to hold, which should set up for a markup higher. So altcoin index looks healthy, reclaim the level it needed to after last week's analysis. So let's get into it. Let's look at the charts and let's see if these altcoins are showing strength like the index is. So starting with XRP. What have we seen? Well, XRP on the weekly, it's in a range between the 2021 cycle all-time high and the all-time high on the TradingView chart. Now, again, I know this wick goes to different places on different exchanges. I don't care. This wick's played out beautifully for me all cycle on this chart. So that's what I've been trading. It's this range between 1.96 to 3.3. Tried to get above it. What was this, guys? It was a sweep reversal pattern. And that, of course, led to this flush. As soon as you got the close below, you can go to lower time frames and see this low, which led to the recent high. Your market structure got broken. That's what told you to look for sales on XRP or at least take profit on your buys. And it led to this, so far, low volatility compression, which we've seen. But we bounced from the zone that I said XRP needs to hold. So last week's video, I mapped out a path. I said, look, XRP is at support here in this blue box. You don't want to see it lose the blue box because then that opens up for a gap fill and you're probably going to break down. So this is the area it keeps bouncing from. You now just need to see a bounce that's not just a lower high and actually takes the structure. So we haven't seen a bounce that gets above this structure over here. So far, it is just another lower high bounce, which is not what you want to see because you're just getting progressively lower highs and you know what that leads to, eventually a markdown. So to invalidate that, what XRP needs to do is have a change of character, a trend shift. Instead of continually making lower highs, it needs to break a high. That would be a market structure break. And then from there, you're just looking for a higher low to form. Now, what is this? This is bullish uptrending structure. Higher low forms there, you get long. If we break the previous all-time high level, well, you're more than likely heading to the all-time high. So that's what to look for in XRP. Those are the triggers. Got the reclaim of this market structure to show that we're making a higher high instead of continued lower highs. And then from there, you're just looking for a higher low to form, which can then lead to internal uptrending structure. And once previous all-time high is reclaimed, all-time high is the target. And then from there, of course, you're looking for either its price can reverse and reject or flip, consolidate, and go higher. But levels to clear first before we get there. And that is really the update for XRP. As we all know, guys, XRP does all of its moves in a very short period of time. What's this? Well, if you missed these 12 days, you missed the entire rally on XRP because this is just sideways chop, chop, chop. If you missed these 16 days, you missed the entire rally on XRP. And of course, if you missed the big rally, you can call it from the breakout here, 17 days, and we broke out from this consolidation, you missed the entire rally. So XRP tends to do nothing, nothing, nothing. Then 2 weeks it goes up, really impulsive move, then back to nothing, nothing, nothing. Just endless chop, endless chop, endless chop. Then 2 weeks, boom. Now we're back to the endless chop. So we know this chart spends the majority of its time just chopping. This should not be a surprise to you to see this chart just being directionless right now. And that's why you need a little signal of direction. Breaking the market structure, as I said, you can use something like the EMA bands. Let's find out which ones are being respected. Okay, these bands are not. They're going red, green, red, green. Let's go to the 3-day chart. Are these bands being respected? Okay, while they're green, XRP does do the majority of its price action. Look at this beautiful signal over here. So these are the 12 and 21 EMA bands. As soon as that flip green, you're in for the entire move really on XRP, because since then it's just been in a range and swept. So that's the entire trend played out through the 3-day 12 and 21 bands, and right now they're green. So why they're green? Everything is good. If they turn red, you want to lose interest of XRP. So what I'd look at here is, again, bands are green. So if we can actually flip this structure level, potentially that sets up a long, as I said, on the higher low, or if you want more confirmation, on the reclaim of the previous all-time high. And from there, you just want to see it track the bands as price rises and continue respecting them. So that's XRP. If we look at the range from here, we're trading in that upper end of the range. So the longer we can accept up here, the better, because that is showing XRP can actually hold at these higher levels. So don't want to see it break down. Otherwise, you're looking at the range midpoint. And as I said, likely if you break down now, you're going to start filling in all of this gap over here. So needs to make a higher high and break that market structure. That's XRP. Moving on to Solana. So what are we seeing? Well, you've got some key pivot levels here. You've got the previous all-time high. You've got the all-time high and the yearly open. Now, above the yearly open, bulls are in control. On this time frame, on the weekly, all the market structure is perfectly intact. And if you get something like the weekly bands out, you can see that's been your primary trend support. Price has wicked into it, produced a new high, wicked into it now, still waiting to produce a new high, but it's your confluence and has been confluence on SOL as the EMA band to look for. As you saw here, when they flip green, started the bull market. And when they're chopping, that's when you know price is ranging. So all these retests lead to new highs. You now just want to see that continue. This retest needs to lead to a new high, but as long as we're above the yearly open, everything's good. I think if we lose the yearly open on SOL, it's probably cooked, and you're probably looking at a move back down to these lower liquidity levels here. And that's because it means anyone who bought at the start of the year on SOL, price goes under there, they're underwater. And if people are underwater, that leads to sell pressure, which doesn't allow an asset to go up because other assets don't have the sell pressure and they get favored. So while we're above the yearly open, bulls who bought on the 1st of January for this year, being bullish on Solana, they're in profit. And if they're in profit, they're feeling good, they're going to long their longs. That leads to reflexive buying and can lead to price going higher. So that's why I say above that yearly open, that's your ultimate invalidation as a bull. Use those 12 and 21 bands as your guide for the trend. And now we just need to start reclaiming some of these levels. So if we zoom into the daily, of course, we had a big move up, which then got fully retraced very quickly. So not a great sign, but as I said, if we hold the yearly open, it's fine. You're just going to see potentially more consolidation, and that can lead to something like a compression pattern forming, which then eventually leads to Solana outperforming. But until then, you want to wait on Solana. Invalidation of that, of course, is breaking above the previous all-time high. Get above there and consolidate, then we're heading to all-time highs and beyond. So if we can just move straight up from here, you're watching the reaction to 260. This is an area where price previously met sellers, so it's a distribution area. Therefore, if we can actually start closing in that zone, then we're building a base for much higher, and it probably won't look like that. If I had to guess, it would be more choppy. On Solana, since we did revert the move very quickly, and was really no reason to revert that move so quick if this was going to be marking up anytime soon. And that's why I say watch your levels. As long as it's above the yearly open, consolidation is bullish here. If we can flip the previous all-time high, then you're looking at all-time high as the target, because again, we haven't been able to close a weekly above the previous all-time high. So close a weekly above there, that should trigger for a breakout on Solana to price discovery. Weekly candle close, something we've been unable to do. When it comes to daily candle closes, we've closed one candle above the previous all-time high. So again, close a daily above the previous all-time high, then the all-time high at 295 is almost a certainty from there, and you can trade the momentum in between. So watch for those two triggers on Solana. Until then, choppy chart. And when you look at Sol ETH, this is a chart I've been sharing with you guys so much. So you can see ETH's been bullish over Sol. Since this breakdown, you had a high, set a new high, you swept it. and set a lower high. You broke the structure over here, and that leads to a downtrend. It's a simple reversal pattern. 12 and 21 EMA bands on the weekly have held as resistance and mapped out this path here where we either hold these 12 and 21 EMA bands as resistance again, which currently it looks like it may be doing. Alternatively, if Sol's going to outperform, then you're going to see it break the 12 and 21 bands, which it hasn't been able to do. So that's what you want to watch on for Sol. You don't want to long an asset that's underperforming. So if we are going to reject here on Sol, it's probably ETH's time to go rather than Solana. And if we can break above the bands, then sure, you can say, hey, Sol's going to outperform. And that's where you can catch some of those ripping rallies of outperformance. And same picture with Sol Bitcoin. Tried to reclaim the range over here. So far broke down from it. If we can reclaim it, then good for Sol. If we can't, while we are now still under it, you probably don't want to be looking at longs on Sol because there's better assets to get long on. So keep an eye on those charts, those relative strength charts. They give super alpha to coin selection, and coin selection can be the difference between you taking a trade on one coin and making 2R and taking a trade on another coin and making 5R. Very, very important as a trader, knowing how to pick your coin selection. That's how you really go from an average trader to a very good trader, let's just say. So it's a mini lesson on relative performance. BNB, 2021 all-time highs at 693. Broke above that, nice and clean. 2024 all-time highs at 793. Broke above that, nice and clean. So now you're really just looking for trend support because it's going parabolic on the weekly time frame. This is price discovery. This is what altcoins can do. This is outperforming the total free index. Total free index is still below all-time highs. So this is what I mean again, when you're looking at your outperformance, your relative strength, where is it? Well, it's been in BNB. And you would have known that if you just look at this index chart and see this is below all-time high, while BNB since 2024 was breaking above its all-time high, and 2025 breaking above it again. It's bucking the trend. That's something that isn't consistent with the rest of the altcoin market. So it's got a bid, it's got more demand, and that's why longs are easier on these assets when you know what coin to pick. So now you're just looking for your trend support, and the trend support has been the daily 12 and 21 EMA bands. Every time, wicked into and produce new high, wicked into and produce new high. And I've been mentioning this on morning markets, guys. I've been mentioning this since it hit 1,000. I don't have the video on me handy, but I know Paul and some of the other guys will remember. I mapped out a chart with all the round number levels on BNB, 900, 1,000, 800, 700. And I said, look, what's the trend support? It's clearly these daily bands. And look, close below them. But as soon as you reclaim them over here on this candle, leads to continuation higher because that is your primary trend support. So expect that to continue. And if it doesn't continue, then you look to your lower bands. Look to something like your 50. If the daily 12 and 21 bands no longer produce new highs, then you're probably looking at a dip to the 50. And if the 50 doesn't hold, then you look at your 200 and 100 EMA bands for potential support, or potentially you go to your weekly. But at the moment, what you want to see is price action wise, you've got a big impulse candle on Friday. You don't want to see that retraced very easily. So if BNB drops below 1090, that's probably going to lead to a lot of consolidation and chop because that is just flushing the entire breakout candle, and it's going to need to then reaccumulate and either go up or distribute and go down. So watch that closely. But if price can actually just consolidate here, hold up, have a little wick into the bands, that's going to be your setup to get long. And if it's alternative where we actually hold up and get a deeper flush, well, you might lose these bands, but that's when your 50 might come into play for a next long. And the 50 is untouched right now. So untouched bands can often offer the best setup to produce new highs. It's like support. The first test is always the strongest. Second, third, fourth test tends to get weaker. So 12 and 21 bands, they're your support levels. Watch the 50 if those don't get respected, and watch 1090. You don't want to see that candle get fully retraced on BNB. You want to see it just consolidate now at the highs. That's bullish trend continuation. If you can just chop around, that almost certainly leads to higher. What is that? It's a bull flag. If you like patterns, Whereas something like this is not a bull flag. That is more like exhaustion. So that's what to look out for on BNB. Any consolidation at the highs should set up a move higher. You just got to hope CZ doesn't start selling. This chart's heavily manipulated. But manipulation can be a good thing, as you see. Sometimes the Binance whales holding the majority of this supply can lead to bullish price action. Just depends whether they're selling, just depends how much hype it can generate. Manipulation can be good or bad. A lot of people complain about it, but they don't complain when it's manipulation to the upside, do they? Never see that. So that's a funny one. BNB, super nice chart. Watch the trend now. It is in the parabolic phase for sure. So lower time frames even, you can look at something like the 1 hour. What are we respecting recently? Oh, it was the H1 bands. And this is what you have to do, guys. Doesn't matter what time frame you're trading on. You can be a scalper, day trader, swing trader. I'm giving you guys the playbook of how to trade it no matter what type of trader you are. You're looking for respect. When something's in a trend, you're looking to follow the trend. And to follow the trend, you need to look for what support is being bidded and what's being respected. 12 and 21 bands. Look at all of these entries producing new highs. And there's even more over here. And you can combine it with price action. So you don't actually get long on this one. You wait for the break. That break of structure. And then you start longing the retest of the 12 and 21 bands. And even if you didn't want this one, you get long on the second one after you see it respected, depending on how much confirmation you want. And we're now losing those bands. So next support moves to the H150 on these lower time frames, and of course 200 and 100. So I'd watch that if you are a lower time frame trader on BNB. Of course, we are rolling over here, so probably expect some downside and shop here. 1090, that's your key level to hold. So you'd really want the H150 to find a bid. Otherwise, it's at risk of retracing it all to 1090. So that is BNB. Let's look at SUI. So SUI, I know this chart is a fan favorite. Hopefully this chart can load, but let's show you this anyway. So SUI, last week, what did I say? You have this interim support at the red box. This is where smart money briefly reaccumulated. Not a big accumulation, but you can see low volatility here. Dumb money, they're bored. They don't like this price action. Now it leads to the markup where smart money starts selling. And as soon as the selling came back to the red box, what happened? Let's get the chart up here. Hopefully it loads. Lovely stuff. Let's take this off. Well, SUI found support exactly at the red box that I mentioned to you guys. Another banger, wicked it literally perfectly, as you can see from the video, and that led to your bounce higher. That was your support zone. So, very nice on SUI, but it's similar to XRP. You need to start seeing it break the structure, because what is this? It's lower high, after lower high, after lower high, after lower high. That is otherwise known as a downtrend, guys. You want long coins that are making high highs in an uptrend, right? Very simple. Charts can be that simple if you let it be simple. A lot of people, they get wrecked because of one simple rule: don't fight the trend. So simple. Need to see SUI break above this level, make that higher high, and then from there, as I said, you're just looking for consolidation to lead to a move higher, or if it needs to dip, then you look at the higher low scenario. That is bullish structure instead of this downtrending bearish structure. So while this red interim support box has held and produced a bounce, which is good, as I said, it's a likely area to produce a bounce. If you do lose it, it opens up this deeper support zone that I mentioned in the blue. So lose the red box and you're probably going to have to go for a dip to higher time frame zone over here, and that is between 1.57 to 2.17. But as long as the red box holds, which is between 2.58 and 3.09, you now just need to see it make a higher high and denote that trend shift, changing the character, which we've seen, of constant lower highs. And then from there, looking for it to flip this high, which produced a false breakout. So this was the bearish setup. You set a high, swept it over here. So what is that? That's a sweep reversal. And that's led to the downtrend and all the flushes. So to invalidate that, SUI then needs to get above 4.29, and that should lead to a move to all-time highs from there. So you don't have to get chopped up here in the downtrend. Why can't you just trade SUI from 4.29 to 5.36? Because if it is going to go to all-time high, it has to first get above 4.29. And it has to first get above 3.89 and set a market structure break. So it's like so many traders, they just get long in the downtrend in price action that looks absolutely crap. Okay, if you caught the box bounce here, that's great. You TP now though, because you need some confirmation. If you get above 3.89, more likely to lead to the highs. Get above the highs, more likely to lead to all-time high. And that's your triggers to trade, guys. You're not interested in the price as a trader. You're interested in price change, because it's all about, can you define your risk to reward? Let me show you why. If you can define a trade like this to all-time high, that's a 4.95R trade. Whereas if you snipe the lows here, where does your stop go? Probably has to go at the low there. And you're trading to all-time high. This is a 2.6R trade. So guess what? If you get long at 3.14, targeting all-time high, and if you get long at 4.44, targeting all-time high, in this scenario, this actually makes you more money, double the money, 4.95R, whereas this is 2.61R. And that's because you're able to define your risk to reward tighter because you have more confirmation. Whereas here, you don't have much confirmation and you've got less favorable risk to reward. So that's a prime example of how the number doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if SUI is 3.14. It doesn't matter if SUI is 4.44. It's about risk to reward. How tight can you get your entry to your stop loss? And of course, how often can that setup win? And that's going to be based on your system probabilities, which you'll know through your backtesting and system building. So that's why it doesn't matter what price SUI is at. You need to wait for confirmation, because it could very easily just continue rolling over and doing more of the same, which is what we've seen it do, as I said. So that is SUI wrapped up. Let's move on to ADA. So ADA's held 0.81 level. Super nice. So this is your March 2024 high. On the weekly, just about saved it. I know ADA looked like it was breaking down on the lower time frame. So it was the 3-day we was actually looking at. Check this video here. We're on the 1-day. So I said ADA needs to bounce from this box between 0.68 to 0.78. And it did that. So we got the bounce here. That's got us back above 0.81. And it's these green 3-day bands which have been decent. You had a bit of chop here where you got faked out, but generally bands go green, leads to a lovely move higher. Bands go green, leads to a lovely move higher. And when they go red, you know to get out. When they go red, you know to get out. So we've reclaimed the bands. Now that they're green and we're above 0.81, potentially ADA can move to $1, but it's much like SUI. Do you really care about trading ADA here? Or can you just wait for it to break $1? Can you just wait for a 3-day close above the psychological level of $1? Because then you can trade it to 1.17 liquidity and potentially 1.32, the high of this cycle. Because if it's going to go to 1.32, guys, it's got to get above $1 first. Until then, you're at risk, of course, of potentially just losing this level and bleeding lower. And if it does that, you have this lower support zone here, which is held time and time again on ADA. So that is between 0.45 and 0.53. And you have this gap fill here at 0.36. And of course, the bear market support at 0.23 to 0.32. Because there's not much impulse here. This is just chop and consolidation. Therefore, I'd wait for $1 to break. And you can even go to your lower time frames. Haven't seen a daily close above $1 since March 2025, and that was one close. So that's the change of character that's needed on ADA. You see a daily close above $1, trade it to the 1.17 liquidity. Trade it to the cycle high at 1.32. And of course, if it rejects $1, then you don't need to get involved. You can just let it play out, maybe even look for shorts if it's going to continue this pattern. So you need to look for the break of $1, and then you can trade it to these higher levels. Until then, it's just chopping. What edge do you have here when price is literally just going like this? Not much, not too much. Of course, you can scalp it low time frames, but that's fine if it's part of your systems. However, Bitcoin's been mooning. ETH's been having a better move than this. Those are the assets you want to be scalping when Bitcoin at the same time has been doing this. You're going to get much more returns out your trades if you're longing the correct asset on those lower time frames. So moving on to Aster, brand new coin. With a lot of brand new launches, they end up going to zero. So let me just tell you that. However, they can have momentum before that happens. And this is the Binance chart. So what I'd look at is a volume profile. Let's see what's been going on. Going to ignore the opening candle because that can be crazy. Okay, so Aster has got a nice volume profile here, holding the value area low and rejecting the value area high. So while we're closing below this value area high at 2.11, expect Aster to move back down to the value area low. It's only once we can start accepting above here that expect a markup. And from there, you're looking at your all-time high pivot level. Can we break this level and hold and consolidate above it? If so, you're going to lead to higher. If we can't break this level, then you're probably going to see a rejection, and that's going to lead to lower. So you're just looking for price to find this all-time high, get above it, and consolidate. That's bullish. When you consolidate above resistance, you don't want to see it take the high and then start consolidating below. That's bearish because you're below resistance after taking liquidity. And then you just look for your reversal patterns if you are going to get the bearish scenario. So that's the level to flip and hold. And first of all, you need to break the value area high. So start closing above here. You're probably going to get that move to the all-time high. And from there, looking for break and hold or reversal. Until then, expect it to move to the value area low. So, and if we break down, of course, below the value area low, you're expecting a flush and bleed lower, which probably is going to really kill off this coin. So value area low at 1.52 is the ultimate level to hold. So that's it for Aster. Pretty simple. Just play these levels as they come. Play this volume profile. This is where the majority of the buying and selling is done. So if you're above where the majority of the buying and selling is done in this quadrant here, people are in profit. That leads to bullish price action. If you're below it, people are in the red, and that leads to people licking their wounds, selling, and that's added sell pressure, which leads to lower price action. So very simple. You want to see it break above and hold this value area high, and that trades you up to the all-time high, and then watch the reaction. Now, Fartcoin. This coin is bleeding. So this did what you don't want to see Aster do. It wicked this all-time high and then flushed back lower. It didn't break a hold and hold above it. It didn't consolidate. Now, this wasn't the all-time high, sorry. All-time high is over here, of course, but you get what I mean. This was the high. We couldn't remain above the high. We closed above it and immediately rejected, so there was no lovely consolidation above the high, which sets up continuation higher. Instead, it got to the high and just immediately reversed and dunked down. So it's used as exit liquidity. And since then, we broke down from the range. So, you know, it's hard to find something bullish for this coin when it's just breaking down and in a downtrend. Again, what is this? Lower highs, low highs, low lows, low lows, low lows. That's the downtrend, guys. Do you want a longer downtrend or do you want a long and uptrend? Of course, you want a long and uptrend. Super simple. So for Fartcoin to potentially form into an uptrend, at the moment, the market structure level is over here. Needs to reclaim this. So 0.95 to potentially flip the high that led to the low, which is a market structure break. And then from there, you're looking for a higher low to form. If it can do that, then it's probably going to invalidate this bearish setup, but it is weak right now. It's broken down from a huge range. It's going to be a lot of underwater buyers here, so it's just going to be difficult for it to get back above. What would you do if you bought Fartcoin at 1.2 or 1.4 or 1.56 if it gets back to $1, that psychological level? You're probably going to sell, aren't you? And long something that's been going pretty parabolic like BNB, or following another trend. Maybe it's in Bitcoin, maybe it's in ETH in a couple of weeks. You're not going to be holding this to the moon when you've experienced so much pain. So it's like, if it gets back to $1, do the sellers show up again, like the red path, or can price actually just accept in this level and start going higher? That's, of course, the green path, your hopium path. Can happen. Nothing's impossible, guys. So that's your trigger to look for. If we can get above $1, above that market structure, and accept in this range, then you can see a move at least to the highs maybe this cycle, but it's not looking good because you set a high here, you set a lower high here on a higher time frame. It's just losing interest, guys. It's just losing interest, and it's in a downtrend while Bitcoin's going up, 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 and up. ETH set all-time high, BNB's breaking out, and this is just breaking down. So yes, it can bounce. This is not me saying it's going to go to zero right now. No, red path, I probably would expect to bounce soon. It's very oversold. Filling in this gap, you can see a reaction to this box over here. This is a cluster of reaccumulation from smart money. So would not be surprised at all to see Fartcoin have a bounce soon. But that bounce is probably just going to be another lower high. And that can be a shallow bounce. It can be a higher bounce up to $1. I'm not sure, but they're the two paths you're looking at. Get above $1 and accept, then we can talk about a trade to the range high. If we can't do that, then just looking at downtrend continuation since it's broken down from this range. Everyone's underwater right now on Fartcoin, and that is not what you want. So Pengu, analyzed Pengu last week. Very simple. You got this blue box, which is so far holding. If you can hold the blue box, then you want to get above 0.3689. This is the level which we swept again and broke down from. So the invalidation of this bearish setup, closing above it would be a bullish setup, and that sets you up a move to resistance 0.041 to 0.046 over here. This is previous distribution where sellers showed up. So if we can get above 0.036, and I'll trade it to this red box resistance. And of course, if we break 0.4695, that previous all-time high level, then you could look for consolidation to form over here. And if you can see consolidation forming, then you can look to trade continuation higher. And of course, if it rejects, then you just look for your reversal and either take profit or potentially take some shorts around that level. So that's it for Pengu. If we break down below the blue box, then you're looking at the red path, because once the gap starts to fill, it typically fully fills. So you don't want to see it. Follow that red path and break down now. Ultimate invalidation really is this low. Pengu should not go below 0.02625. That is set here. It needs to hold from the blue box and get above some market structure levels to start invalidating this bearish setup is sad, which has been a downtrend. So that's what you're looking at on Pengu. You're in a downtrend until you reclaim this level over here. Reclaim that, and you can trade it to this resistance zone. You can trade it to potentially all-time highs and breaking out if we can flip that as well. Otherwise, if we lose 0.2625 the low, you're looking at the red path back to an area where smart money previously accumulated between 0.00772 and 0.01751. That's probably where it would then bounce from later on. So that's what I look at on Pengu. It's downtrending. It's like XRP. It's like SUI. It needs to make a higher high, break that market structure, then you trade the green path. Otherwise, if it loses the low, you're looking at a breakdown further. And then you look at your high time frame support, which is this green box over here, where smart money previously accumulated in that low volatility before the markup. So that should find support if we do follow that red path and go lower. So those are the triggers to look for on Pengu. When we look at Wild, well, not a great coin. Obviously, Sam Altman led this coin and he recently abandoned it and said he's got nothing to do with it anymore. So whenever someone does that, it tends to lead to very poor price action. I know there's another coin. It escapes my mind, but I remember the CEO left it and it's just been going down and down and down ever since. I can't remember for the life of me. It's a black token, I believe it. Aptos, yes, this one. There we go. So CEO left this coin. I remember it was literally on this day over here, somewhere around December 2024. CEO left, and look what's happened. It just bleeds down and goes into this never-ending chop, which is going to lead to it probably bleeding to zero. And the charts tell the story first. What is this? Lower high, lower high, lower high. You don't even need to know the CEO is going to leave. You don't need the breaking news. It's not manipulation. The charts were showing it before. It showed the weakness. Couldn't make new highs. Now it's bleeding to zero, pretty much. Of course, caveat that, guys. I don't literally mean that, but it's the same with Wild. It looks similar, huh? Lower high, lower high, lower high. Sam Altman leaves or abandons the project. And now you're just bleeding at the lows. It's not great when you've got so many other assets trending. Now, it's not looking terrible. It has held the April 7th low, which some coins like Ondo were unable to do. The fact that it held that low and formed a high low here was good, because you then set a low, set a high low. Now you got the high. So the only problem with that is this move was so inefficient. This is not bullish price action when you go up like this, because now it's just probably going to bleed and fill in the entire gap. Therefore, what are you really looking at on Wild? The move's played out, because if we have a rally, it's just probably going to get sold into, because anyone who tried to catch a breakout buy at $2, they're underwater, and what are they going to do when we get back up to their area where they're underwater? They're going to sell. They're going to cut their losses wherever they can. And that is sell pressure. And not every coin has that sell pressure. They don't have this pump and dump recently. So even if it bounces, it's probably just going to lead to a lower high for, again, just filling in this gap. And it's not really interesting here. It's just chopping around. As soon as it gets to this area, as you can see, it's just pure chop. So by all means, if you have a system that's triggered on Wild, trade it. But otherwise, from an investment standpoint, it's at the lows. It's had a pump and dump. This is another lower high bounce where you've just got an ugly wick, and you're just forming these never-ending lower highs as it really bleeds. This is not a bull market, this chart. This is literally a bear market. It's been in a bear market since March 2024, so it's not a good coin to invest in. You can maybe trade it if you have systems for it, but it's kind of PvP, kind of ugly. If you weren't on board somehow for this move, don't know how you would be. I don't know what system would trigger to get you on board in a 2-day rally, but if you weren't on board that, then kind of missed out. And it's the traders who are filled with FOMO of missing out this huge pump. They're like, oh my god, it went 2x. Yeah, went 2x because it's down like 99%. It's not hard for a coin to go from $100 to $1 and then go from $1 to $2. That is a 2x, guys, but it doesn't mean you want it, do you? If it's down 90%, it's not hard to rally 2x. So that's why, sure, it's had a big move, but this is now bleeding. So if you missed the move, you pretty much don't want to be looking at this coin. So moving on to Aero. Pretty similar story. So what is this? Lower high? After lower high, after lower high. If Aero is going to break out and is the next cure for cancer, then it's going to get above the all-time high, no? So again, it's one of those charts which I look at and I'm like, if this is the future of finance, which I don't know if it is, maybe it is, guys, who knows, then it's going to get above all-time high, no? If it is going to go to $4, it first has to get above 2.37, and then I'll just trade it in this zone here. If it's so bullish, it's going to have a parabolic move higher after breaking all-time high, but you're not seeing that at the moment, are you? You're seeing lower high, potential lower high here. So simple for me. I'd wait for a break of all-time high to trade the momentum higher if it's the future of finance. And if it's not the future of finance, then what do you really see here? I mean, you got the $1 level. This was support. Then flipped, led to a move lower. Finding support there again. So it's been a clear support resistance level. Break above it leads to continuation higher. Break below it leads to continuation lower. So we were above it right now. So while you're above 1.059, can set up a move higher. But again, you're just making these lower highs on the daily chart, which it's not ideal. So it's not the most interesting coin when you got Bitcoin in a beautiful H1 trend, as you guys have seen from my analysis. We've been trading Bitcoin, we've been trading ETH, and they've offered very nice moves, whereas this is in a downtrend. So you got to wait for this trend line breakout to break, I guess. And much like XRP, much like SUI, much like all these coins, you want to see it invalidate the lower highs, break above there. Now we can talk about Aero, because now it's making high highs and high lows instead of low highs and lower highs and lower highs, because you're at risk of just another lower high. So just simply be patient, wait for it to break above the market structure, which led to this recent low. It should stay above 1.059 now. Otherwise, if we go below there, I think you are going to make a new low. So from here, you really need to see it rally, make a new high. And if it can make a new high above this market structure, then look for a higher low to get on board. Or you can then look for longs, trading it at least towards this level. And if this level flips, you can trade it higher to some of these gaps over here. So you do have some targets. If we can actually break above on Aero, then you've got a lovely gap, which should get filled pretty quickly. Gap over here. So flip and hold 1.6, I'd actually be interested in trading this up to 1.96, so that $2 psychological level. I'd be interested in that. So I'd trade Aero from here to here in that zone. And in the interim, before that, you've got to break this market structure level over here at 1.34. And you can look to trade Aero to this high here, and whether it flips, then you look for trades higher, and if it rejects, then you're looking for downtrend continuation on this coin. So looking at the reaction to the high at 1.59 if it can get there. Now that is altcoin analysis, guys. Appreciate you all. If you do enjoy these videos, please hit subscribe. I'm screenshotting the first 200 subscribers so I know who the OGs of this channel are. Drop a like, drop a comment, help me boost that algorithm. I want to blow this channel up. It deserves to be blown up with all the calls we've made in morning markets. Analysis has been pretty damn accurate for you guys. So if you've been enjoying it, you value the content, let me know by doing all of those three things. You better be subscribed, guys, because we've got so much more trading to be done in Q4, which offers my personal best returns. So let's keep smashing it. Keep the work up. Weekends off of work. I'll see you guys in the next one.